He was in from 41 to 45, and he was in 5 campaigns. He spent about 2 years in North Africa, and then essentially his photographic unit was assigned to the Big Red One, which is the 1st Army Infantry Division. So he didn't follow them completely because they went from North Africa immediately to D-Day, which he did not. He stayed in North Africa and photographed and filmed all the operations there until the Germans were defeated. And then he started migrating into Sicily, Italy, France, and Germany. So he basically made his way up into Europe. So have you seen the series Band of Brothers? Steven Spielberg's series?
Yes.
I think it's the last episode. The GIs are at Berchtesgaden, and they've got their feet up on the table, and it's all bombed out, and everything's been stripped except for perhaps a lot of trophy deer antlers on the wall and a few paintings. So that image that Steven Spielberg used, I have. That was one of my father's photographs. So clearly that was made public, and but it's kind of an iconic image of these GIs with their feet up on this massive banquet table in the dining room at Berchtesgaden, and then sitting on the verandas overlooking the mountains. Same thing. My father and Ernie Pyle became great friends, and they traveled together for probably 2 months. And Ernie Pyle was, my father being young, Ernie Pyle was an older, experienced journalist, and they hit it off. And so Ernie Pyle became almost like a surrogate father to my father. During the invasion of North Africa, they were deep into the territory, and my father and a captain were driving in a Jeep in area they thought was secure, and so they're driving about 40 miles per hour, and suddenly the driver of the Jeep slumps over dead. He was shot by a sniper through the head. And so my father was in the back seat and the captain was in the front. So the captain he said, I'll work the gas pedals and the clutch from here, you reach over and steer. So the two of them hightailed it as quickly as they could out of the area to safety. So that was in Ernie Pyle's book. Hitler's photographs of Berchtesgaden, they're like banquet dinners with these the servants, men in full livery, incredibly ornate outfits that these guys wore, really, amazingly laid out banquets with all kinds of crystal and silver and plates and liveried men standing by. Yeah, so the show will essentially have 2 parts. One will be the war photos, my father's images, and then the second part of it would be the Hitler collection. We asked, and he refused to talk about it. We did see these photos occasionally, like once or twice, but he kept them safe, and he didn't. These were sort of private. One of the interesting things I learned, he also wrote diaries. He wrote an account of the invasion of North Africa, and it's very it's not quite cold, but he uses dry humor to sort of cover the worst things, like filming the invasion. He and his, the other cameraman he was with, stood in the water for an hour and a half filming the invasion. And it was a rough invasion. And that was their job. And the interesting thing I learned from the diary was he didn't have any telephoto lenses. So in order to shoot this stuff, he had to be up close, which is why we chose the title for the exhibit, Up Close, because this war was photographed up close. He never said anything like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. What he did say were things like, the fighting was the most intense that our division had seen yet. So it's very, almost clinical, but you could tell, you know. And then he would say later about the GIs, about humor and the need after they had finished a battle. He told a story of one GI doing like a mock striptease act, you know, and because they're all so wound up. And this guy was a natural comedian from New Jersey, and he pretended to, you know, sort of do a Gypsy Rose Lee type striptease. So that's how they blew off the steam. You know, we 5 children, we hammered him with questions. Please tell us, please tell us. And he steadfastly refused. So actually this has been a revelation. So we were able to, my father saved his discharge papers, and I just found them in doing this work for the exhibit. So I handed those over to my friend the Navy captain, and so he went through them, and to them they made sense. To me it was a lot of, you know, I have no idea what all this means. So he was able to create a timeline of where my father was in the war, which we never knew. So it's like discovering our father at this age. He's been dead for more than 20 years, and all of us are just learning about him. So it's wonderful.
Did your mother talk?
No. She actually wouldn't let my father talk about the war. So she was sort of protecting him and protecting us, and she just thought, that's over. That chapter's closed. We don't need to revisit that. Yeah. You know, it was just the way people were. The photos will be up through November 8th. So, at the community center, they'll have viewing hours on Saturdays and Sundays, not during the week. Okay. And it will be in conjunction with the Tredaven Players production, Lives Interrupted. So the TAP and the Oxford Community Center have been kind enough to sort of be this triumvirate in supporting this exhibit. So it will be a great event.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking